Welcome to the webinar. We're going to go through a bit of cnArcher. It's been on beta for a little while. We've had a lot of feedback. We've had a lot of good feedback from a number of different folks who have tested it out for us. It's now available in Android. We'll talk a little bit about exactly where it's available and when it'll be available on other devices. Also on the line, we have one of the key developers, Rajesh, if we have any specific questions or things that may come up during the webinar, to be able to address everything kind of real time. So hopefully what you see in front of you here, well, first off, hi everyone, is a PowerPoint presentation that we'll kind of go through a little bit here to kind of introduce you to what's going on, what cnArcher really is all about, the pros for using it, some of the caveats, helping you understand a little bit about what I kind of call the transition phases of it, or phase as you work your way through it. And then also what you're seeing in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is my Android phone being mirrored onto the screen so that we can kind of walk through a live demonstration of doing a installation setup of the devices that you see here in front of me. I have a subscriber module attached to an access point, a site switch, and an instance of cnMaestro on-prem. So let's kind of go through a couple of things here first. And we'll start off with the presentation. So we'll talk a little bit about the application. We'll talk a little bit about the connectivity between cnArcher and a subscriber module. Understanding cnArcher IP network transitions, and this is kind of what I kind of call phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of using the application. Initial setup steps, we'll walk through that. I just loaded cnArcher onto my phone, as you can see over here. Hopefully you can see my mouse moving. Can you see my mouse moving, Jody or Rajesh?
Yes, we can.
Or not really?
No, we can see it. You're good.
So, perfect. We'll go through the actual initial start of cnArcher, and then we'll go through some interactions. Most of it will all be live via the GUI on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So, about the application. It's a mobile device app for subscriber installers, specifically designed to help make installers' life easier, more repeatable, more reliable, by walking you through some process-driven steps for how to set up a subscriber initially, do some aiming, do some link testing, do some baselining, and then have all of that documented within your app, and also be able to move that documented installation baseline up to a central repository, either eventually through cnMaestro or via email or text or what have you. The release supports version 1.02 Canopy PnP SMs right now. So you need to at least have this version of software running on your Canopy SMs. As you can see here, the next major release, probably in about a few weeks, Q2 of 2018, will support a lot of people calling for the next support for ePnP subscriber module. So it'll support both Canopy and ePnP, as well as it will also support Apple iOS version, because right now it totally just supports Android-based solutions. Work orders, so this is another thing. We'll get into work orders a little bit later, but this is more, the vision of cnArcher is a lot more than just simply the app to be able to install subscriber modules and aim them properly and baseline them. It's actually tied into a full end-to-end vision of provisioning, setting up work orders, kind of blending in a little bit with your front-end operations type of processes, and then make things easier to get that information out to installers who then have everything they need to know before they go to site to install these subscribers. And we'll talk a little more about that as we go along here. Download and install cnArcher from Google Play now. If you're an Android phone owner, you can go to Google Play, pull it down. I've just installed it on my phone. Actually, I installed a version that isn't on Google Play right at the moment, just to kind of show you a feature that's coming in a couple of weeks. But predominantly, everything you're going to see here is what you're going to get from downloading it right now from Google Play. So why should I use it? Hopefully, most of the items listed here are somewhat obvious, but it eliminates the need for warehouse pre-configuration, because you're going to be able to do everything via the cnArcher app that you need to do. If you have some early hardware or warehouse configuration steps that you do now, eliminates the need for bulky laptops, eliminates the need for a local power supply when you're doing initial aiming. You don't have to pull a cord or find out how to kind of connect things up to a power outlet. We'll talk about how that's all self-contained within the overall solution. Minimizes the number of screens that installers really need to understand. All they need to understand is the information that's available and presented to you on the cnArcher app. They don't have to get into the sometimes cumbersome and very detailed, very advanced features that are on a lot of the configuration web pages built into the radio. And it eliminates the need for a phone call back to the network's operations center. Now, what does that mean? That means that, first off, cnArcher is built in mind to be very tightly coupled with cnMaestro. If you're a cnMaestro user, whether it's on-prem or cloud, cnArcher can be very tightly coupled such that during the usage of cnArcher, it will not only configure, aim, document the radio, but it'll also assist in the onboarding processes and SLA template pushes from your cnMaestro instance down to the radio, all via the app. So that's also a very key and powerful thing. We kind of talked about this a little bit. I won't go through all of these here, but basically it allows you to push software upgrades to the device locally if you need to. If you say you go to a site install and the subscriber module isn't a software version that we just talked about that is compatible with cnArcher, you can have software loaded right on your smartphone so that if you run into that scenario, you can upgrade the device locally just from your smartphone and nothing else, such that you can now communicate through the whole process of cnArcher. Simplifies AP evaluation. We'll go through what that all means as we run through an example. SM alignment validates the installation, allows you to run link tests from your cnArcher application. Automatically configures this SM location. This is also a very, very cool feature. So leveraging the GPS within the smartphone, when you're doing the installation, that information will be pushed automatically into the SM so that when the SM is onboarded into cnMaestro or whatever application, it'll already have the GPS coordinates of that SM via your smartphone available to it and be able to automatically place it into a map for you, and you don't have to go through the, well, I've onboarded it, now let me drag and drop it to where it actually goes. All right. Understanding the connectivity between cnArcher and a subscriber module. So how do we communicate with via the smartphone that's running the cnArcher app up to the subscriber module? So we leverage a Wi-Fi AP, a portable Wi-Fi AP and battery dongle. That's this guy here, actually, you can see down below. At the moment, we recommend a solution. It provided you a couple of website links there where you can get it. But basically, the solution comes in a little pouch like this. I presume you can see this. Open it up. You have a battery power pack dongle that allows you to power up the radio as well as provide Wi-Fi connectivity to attach a smartphone such as this to this dongle. It has an Ethernet link connection, I presume you can see here. An Ethernet link connection that basically provides a transparent bridge connectivity between your smartphone and the attached device to allow you to communicate to it. It provides PoE, passive PoE, so 24 volts is what a original PMP 450 module would be requiring to connect up to it. If you're using a 450i type solution, then there's a optional adapter cable. I don't know if you can maybe see this here, but we can provide all the information about what these adapter cables that do conversion from 24 to 48 that allows you to talk to a 450i subscriber module, or the Cambium PoE pinout type cable that you can get. We'll provide all that information to you. You can go to this website here and find those parts available for you and purchase your own little setup here. All right. We'll go through one or two more slides, and then we'll move over into the actual application here. So this is the one thing that I think is helpful for people to kind of understand on what's happening inside cnArcher. And I kind of break it up into three phases to try to help simplify things. So In phase one is when you've downloaded cnArcher, installed it on your smartphone, and then you have to do some one-time only type of initial setup steps. That would be perhaps configuring if you're going to use cnMaestro, whether you have a cloud account or an on-premise account like what we have here. You can configure that information. If you want to pull down some local software for the subscriber modules like I was talking about to make sure you have locally on your smartphone the minimum version software in order for cnArcher to communicate to a subscriber module, you can do that during this initial setup. There's a couple other things that we'll walk through here that you kind of get through that initial setup. During that time, the phone would be connected to the internet through either the mobile data connection or maybe a Wi-Fi hotspot, but it's not talking to the subscriber module at that time during this little phase one. It's just initial setup type steps. Then once we're through that, excuse me, we'll move to phase two. And phase two is now when the cnArcher application is actually now dedicated to talking to the subscriber module through this Wi-Fi dongle. cnArcher takes care of that whole setup of talking to the Wi-Fi Archer or the Wi-Fi dongle. And you would be talking via a dedicated IP address because the subscriber module is set up as a factory default of 169.254.1.1 for those of you that are familiar with the 450 subscriber, and communicates in that scenario. And we'll go through all the steps that happen during that scenario in this demonstration. And then finally, we transition to a phase three where cnArcher now is, the subscriber module is totally configured. It's talking to an access point. It's been assigned an IP address from the core. And now your smartphone is kind of acting like a home, a residence router or a residence PC trying to get to the core. And that's where we'll communicate with cnMaestro and onboard the device into cnMaestro. So those are kind of the summary of the three phases of what's happening in cnArcher. We'll go slow through this. Normally, if you're familiar with cnArcher and as you play with it, it'll be a very fast process, but I'm going to kind of purposely go a little bit slow to kind of make sure we're explaining what's going on as we transition here. All right, so initial setup steps, and I won't necessarily go through the slides much anymore. We're going to go straight to the app, and hopefully this will work here. So if we're kind of tempting the fates of the IP gods here a little bit because I'm remotely mirroring my Android phone. We're running a webinar. I got TeamViewer running as well and video. So if something kind of gets a little blended, you know, bear with us for a little bit, because this is probably really challenging, the whole network setup here. But anyway, so far so good. So I just installed, when you first install, you go through this terms and conditions, click on accept, and here's your first real step of whether you want to use cnMaestro or not. You can opt out, and then that perhaps simplifies the installation quite a bit, but it's very valuable to use cnMaestro. I have a cnMaestro on-premise set up here, so I'm going to say yes, cnMaestro on-prem. I'm going to type in some information about how to get to that cnMaestro on-prem when this guy is connected to the closed network that I have here. 54.162 admin. I can check, make sure that's okay. Yep. Now, if I wanted to validate these credentials to make sure I really got it right and I can really connect, I can click on validate, and it will actually go and try to ping the cnMaestro and try to test out the login credentials. I'm not going to do that here because I'm not set up in the right way just yet. So click on next, and now I get to, I'm still in phase one. I'm still in these initial setup steps that aren't necessarily needed to be repeated every single time I use cnArcher. So now I want to tell cnArcher a little bit about what my channel plan is for my network. So in this particular setup, I'm using a 40 megahertz channel on this particular setup, so I'm going to keep things very simple. I could just as well select multiples. No real issue there. I am using 5750 on this particular access point, so I'm going to select only that. I can select all if I need to, or maybe several that I'm using in my network. All right, so I'm done there. Now it goes to, let me do one thing quick here. Let me disconnect. Forget this guy. It remembers last time I was connected to this. So now it needs to go to the internet. Oh, retry. Try. There we go. Okay. So now it went to the internet and it sees that I have these software loads available to download directly to the phone if I wanted to. So this would be the latest one. I would click on this and it would just simply download it from the internet and have it stored locally on the phone. So if I wanted to push it into a subscriber, I could do it locally without any need for CNUT or anything like that. So now we're done with phase one. That's all that you would need to do for your initial setup. You don't need to necessarily repeat any of that. You can go back and change that if you need to, and I'll show you how to do that. But for the moment, I can now go from house to residence, business to business, and not have to do those steps anymore. Allow cnArcher to access the device's location. I'm going to allow it because once the device knows where it is, it's able to push that GPS information into the subscriber as we go along the installation steps. All right, so I need to first tell cnArcher where is this dongle that I wanted to connect it to. So this is my dongle. That's the SSID being provided by this little dongle. I'm going to click on that, connect to it, and good. So I'm now connected. I have a green little icon here that shows you that the cnArcher is connected to the dongle. And it immediately now went out and probed the device attached to the dongle. I can see here that cnArcher discovered there's a PMP450SM, which is this guy right here. Here's the MSN, the MAC address for it, what software it's currently running. This is a connectorized SM. I have it cabled directly to the AP just to kind of simplify the installation steps here. So I could click on this and tell it, oh, you know what, really, I actually have a 20 dB panel antenna connected to it. I'm not going to do that right here for the moment. But this is where you would do it. If this was a non-connectorized SM, you could then, and I'm using a clip or a reflector, I would click on this here and tell it that you're putting on a clip or you put on a reflector, basically so that it can provision the SM and make sure that it has a proper link budget set up within the subscriber module and all the proper things for the automatic power control function to work properly. So it's discovered the SM. I'm going to push the scan list that I told cnArcher about earlier. So it's writing that information into the subscriber module. It's done doing that. Do I have any security aspects set up for this subscriber? If I was using Radius or local authentication, I would click on this and type in that information. This AP is running AES, so I'm going to change it to an AES link encryption, wireless link encryption, and write that information into the subscriber module. So it's putting that information, all the channel scan information, all the channel bandwidth size information, the AES. It's now rebooting the SM to make all that take effect. So as the SM reboots and comes back, it'll start scanning again and should hopefully attach to the access point as we transition through the steps of cnArcher. Excuse me. All right. So it's now in what we call prepping for scan mode. Whoop, cancel. Hang on one second. Bear with me. Let me get this video guy started again, because I really want you guys to see all this, not just me. There we go. Put you back up there. All right, so what this is intended to do is to kind of give you a tag for if you have no idea where access points may be, or you may have multiple access points all around the different area. This tag name is basically kind of giving you a reference so that when you see your list of available access points to actually connect to, you have an idea of where you were pointing when you were doing it. And I think you'll see what I mean. So right now it's scanning for all 40 megahertz enabled access points. There we go. All right, so it's found this guy here. Now, obviously, he's connected very well, so you're seeing a pretty strong signal. But basically, it's saying, hey, this access point has a color code of 65. It's running on the frequency that you told me to scan for. And you're currently, imagine that I was pointing this guy in the north direction, so I'm seeing that signal. If I wanted to scan a couple of additional scenarios, perhaps I want to point toward the south, I can restart the evaluation, tag that evaluation as I'm pointing south, and I would see all the access points that match my criteria there. And then once I've determined that I've found the one that I want, I would click on it, connect to that IEP, and now it's going through and pushing the proper color code that I've told it about by selecting the AP that I wanted it to go to. And once again, that needs to be applied to the subscriber module. I can see the subscriber module in front of me here. It's now resetting. And shortly, hopefully it should start scanning here and coming back, connecting into the access point, and I'll see an updated information on my screen here shortly as soon as it kind of connects. So we'll give that a minute to cook. There's one other thing that I actually want to show you once we do come in that's kind of stepping outside the process, which is actually a very nice thing. So here it's telling me it's connecting to the access point. Probably give it another few more, maybe 10, 15 more seconds or so. Should connect in. I can see it's connected in, it's registered. And now we've transitioned to the aiming scenario here. So this is where I would actually be, if I'm using a connectorized scenario, I would actually be moving the antenna, the external antenna a little bit and trying to get it to the best signal. Since this is a connectorized setup, it's pretty stable. I can fudge with it a little bit and maybe disconnect one of the connections. I'm not going to measure it. That's what. But basically, let's say I've done a little bit of tweaking now. I've tightened up my connections, whether I'm using lockdown screws or whether I'm using weather-rated tie wraps or whatever. I've now aimed this guy in the proper position, and I want to lock it in, and that's my best results. I can then run a link test. And so we'll transition to a link test. And again, I'm doing all this from cnArcher. And it gives me some link test information based on, if you're familiar with Canopy, there's a couple different modes. Extrapolated link test is kind of a rough order magnitude type of performance. It's looking at bit error rate and kind of estimating what would be your minimum uplink and downlink type information. I tend to like going with a reel, so you have the option of choosing a reel link test. With cnArcher, it'll limit you to only 2 seconds for that link test because it does actually disrupt the service on the access point temporarily. And when I run this guy, we should get a pretty beefy selection here. So I can see I have 191 and 14 down. Let me run that again because I think we can probably broach the 200 meg mark. All right, 209. One other thing too, this little solution or this little button here allows me to see the history of what I've been running. So my first one, my second one, my third one, all of this information gets recorded into cnArcher. So I have this information when I'm all done the installation. I have this information that I can send up and again provides my baseline. What did the installer see when he was installing this this subscriber? So now I'm done. So now I get to the, I'm just about done with phase 2 here, where I'm talking to the subscriber. I'm dedicated in a configuration scenario here. So here now I'm in the IP configuration. This is kind of like the last part of the installation steps. So I'll call it John Smith. It's at 10 meters. That's where I installed it. And then I have some choices here. Do I want the device to be set up in NAT mode or not NAT mode? What is the IP settings? Is it DHCP or static? One thing to show, if I did turn on NAT, an additional selection comes here. So if you use PPPoE, you can then select PPPoE, and all the various parameters that relate to PPPoE will become visible, and you can populate those. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to have no NAT. It's going to be transparent bridge, DHCP. If I had any management VLANs or user data VLANs, I could apply them now. All right, so we'll save that. Excuse me. We'll go through. It's pushing all that information in there. While it's doing that, I'm going to hopefully be able to show you here. So I have the CN Maestro on-prem, what's running on the virtual server here, displayed on the screen. I have an access point. This guy already discovered in it. What I want to show you is the onboarding screen. Let's delete. I did a quick test of it earlier, so it was already in there from earlier. But pretend that wasn't in there because that was a test run from earlier. Anyway, so now we're seeing the device is still rebooting. It's getting ready to connect up to the subscriber module. Once it connects up to the subscriber module, then it has all the information about how does it connect to cnMaestro. See, it looks like we're moving along here. cnMaestro connecting. There we go. Hopefully things will appear. There we go. And as you see on the screen, hopefully you see on the screen, it automatically brought that device into cnMaestro. And so now cnArcher is actually going out, reaching out and connecting through the SM into the cnMaestro, into the instance of cnMaestro on-prem. So now I'm into cnMaestro on-prem. I see a little display on my screen that I can type in any comments. Install on March 6th. If I wanted to push any new firmware from what's loading on cnMaestro now. This isn't what's happening locally on the SM. This is me. I'm actually remote controlling cnMaestro, a small piece of cnMaestro on a simple screen, but I can push any of the firmware that's actually on cnMaestro into the device. I can push any predefined service templates. So say that I'm at a house where they just bought 10 up, 1 down. I could have a template that's already set up in cnMaestro to push to that as the installer by clicking on this templates drop down. So I'm good with this. I'm just going to onboard the device now. Hopefully you see it just transitioned to onboarded. So nobody at the data center or at the NOC had to actually go in and touch the subscriber. cnArcher did all of it for you. And now I'm done. And then finally, you get to this kind of summary page where you can, everything that we just did, all the aiming, all the AP selection, all the link test runs, the IP config can all be set up in this detailed summary document, and I can share that. I can either click on this here and I can email it up to my boss or email it to me for further processing. The long-term vision, or I shouldn't say, I don't know about how long, just can kind of comment, but the long-term vision would be able to actually have this now push this information up to cnArcher in a little library area where each of your installers have their dedicated area of where they can push their installation solutions or their installation documentation, such that that can be stored and used for reference with any kind of further issues that may come up for that particular customer installation. Let me discard this. And so we're done. We're done. That's basically it for now. 2 more things I want to talk about real quick. How are we doing on time here? 9:30, so half hour. I don't know if any questions have popped up, Jody. If not, we can continue on and
there have
wrap this up soon.
And I think it's timely to probably address it now. The first one is from Roy, and he wants to know if it's possible to work from a template, which I think you kind of showed some of that, to auto-select default values. Like, for example, the encryption screen set by default to AES, so the installer doesn't have to make that selection.
Yes, yeah, actually you're getting to a point where I'm gonna, so I mentioned I have two things to kind of show. One is gonna be quickly just kind of showing a couple of things from this screen here. And then the other is gonna be talking a little bit more in detail about what's envisioned for this concept called work orders. And hopefully when I get through the work orders, it'll address the question of, can you make the steps that we went through even easier by not requiring an installer to have to select certain things that he may not know about. Let me talk about what work orders does, and that makes everything that we just went through 10 times even easier because everything's already been automated. So let me, if you can hold that one, and then is there any other ones, Jody?
No, the other one you answered, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So then one more thing I wanted to show, well, maybe 1 or 2 more things I wanted to show on here. So it's now detected that subscriber module, again, it's already done. We're not going to provision it anymore. But something during this whole process, during the different steps that I was showing for provisioning this guy, this this little display up here that shows the subscriber module connected to an access point and it's registered and what's going on is actually an active touch touchscreen area. If I was to click on that, and I could touch it either with my finger, I'm just using the remote control here, it actually brings up details about that subscriber. And you can do this at any time during the installation period. So I can see who it's registered to, channel, signal strength, IP configuration, is it connected on-premise? And then there's some nice little tools at the very bottom. So I can click on this and actually launch into the GUI of the radio, just as if I was using my laptop to connect to this guy and do whatever I want. I can reboot the device, or say I messed something up when I was installing it, so I fat-fingered something or just something didn't work out right. I can, from this setup here, I can factory reset the device and start my whole installation over again, correcting whatever error I may have made. So that's handy to know. Okay, click on that, there we go. One other thing too, this 3 bars at the top is actually a menu. That'll pop out a menu for different things that you could do. Settings will take you to everything we did in the beginning, where we set channels up, we set up IP for Maestro, we set login credentials, we set various different things. I could get back to that by just going to settings and a few other things. I won't necessarily dive into it at the moment. If I want to stop this installation and go start a new installation somewhere else, I click on install a new SM. One other really nice thing, there is a fully featured demo mode. So everything I just did, I needed to have a subscriber module attached to the cnArcher in order to actually go through those steps of configuring this setup. However, the developers have built in a nice little feature where you can go into demo mode, where you can just be sitting in your house, getting familiar with the application by running through demo mode, and it emulates you are actually connected to a subscriber module, and everything we just went through can be done sitting in your easy chair at home with no subscriber attached to it, so you can get familiar with the actual application. So a really nice learning curve expediting tool there. Last thing is talking about work orders, and I'll only go through this a little bit, and Rajesh, I know he's on the call, he's one of the main developers for designing this. He can elaborate or add color if he wants to, but in a nutshell, work orders is something that allows you to pre-plan a lot of the details that I went through and pre-configure that and make it available to your installer in a QR code setup. So say what Cambium is developing is, well, we would intend for somebody to kind of build this into their CRM, but imagine this. So you have a CM work order web page created where you or an administrator or an engineer or somebody takes in a call, gets the information about what type of service, and you pre-populate everything that we just pre-populated in the cnArcher app on a web page. And when you're done populating all that, you basically make a QR code, and you send that QR code to your installer, or you put it on top of the work order list. And once you get that QR code, it has all that information. Let me close this out. And in cnArcher, I have a little QR code reader. Wow, since it's the first time that we used it. And hopefully here, yeah, I borrowed this from you, Rajesh, sorry. But anyway, so as you can see now, I just read that QR, and now it's populated everything that we kind of went through. Here's the encryption settings. It's the QR code had it set up for DES, but the QR code could have just as easily had it for AES. All the CN Maestro onboarding information. Save this, and now I can leverage this work order information that was provided to me with the QR code. I can save it and apply it when I go to that customer's house if I'm the installer. So I've now just made it so that the installer almost needs to know nothing other than how to actually make sure when he's aiming this guy, he's getting the best signal, the best signal strength, the best SNR, and things like that. So I know that there's some future visions for how this will be, that whole work order scenario will be set up. Again, likely tightly integrated into CM Maestro so that all is a nice smooth operation. That you can do things in CM Maestro and push it out to your installers and assign things to your installers, what have you. hopefully that answered the question that the gentleman asked earlier, Jody. If not, he can ask something more. I don't know, Rajesh, if you're still on, if you have anything more you wanted to add to any of things that I discussed during this webinar.
Yeah, just a couple of things. For the QR code, it is not available in the released version yet. We are expecting to start a beta version in the next couple of weeks. So if you have the app, then you can go to the Play Store. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page of the app and sign up for beta. And if you have signed up for beta, then you will automatically get pushed a beta update when it becomes available, which will enable the QR code. The screen that Dave is showing where he's entering the details of the subscriber. This is intended as an example for somebody to take and integrate into their own workflow. From our side, we'll be integrating this into cnMaestro itself, so that you can create a work order from cnMaestro and push it down to the app. For third-party billing systems or CRM systems, this provides a QR code, provides an easy way of integration where you can add a QR code to the work order that you give out to the installer. And one last minor detail, you'll notice that the QR code includes the address of the subscriber. So if when the installer is at a house about to install, the app will automatically select the correct QR code based on the GPS location by matching it to the address. So when you open the app, it will automatically select the QR code for you and allow you to either deselect if you don't want to use that work order, but you don't even have to select which customer you are about to install.
Wow, that's pretty slick. All you got to do is wake up in the morning and it sounds like this stuff's done for you. So excellent, thanks, Rajesh. All right, if there's no other questions, maybe we'll wait another 15 seconds. Oh, fire away then.
Oh yeah, we have a couple, specifically to that GPS, Rajesh, that you were just talking about. Does the cnArcher take the GPS directly off the site or from the GPS of the mobile? So of the mobile phone or of the actual site?
It takes
you want to address these questions, Rajesh?
Yeah, it takes the GPS location from the phone and pushes it into the subscriber module. And when the subscriber module connects to cnMaestro pulls that information. So it's ultimately the GPS coordinates of the phone.
Okay. And then kind of on that same line, when we just showed the QR code and it was based on GPS, how is that going to work? Like if you're installing multiple systems in the same building, which then have the same GPS? Is that going to cause problems with the QR code?
No, it's not going to cause problems with the QR code. I mean, you'll end up with multiple SMs at the same GPS location or very close GPS location. But the address is, just to the address itself doesn't matter much, except that it tries to calculate the distance and tell you what the best choice is. Now, you will end up in a situation where it may automatically select the wrong work order for you if you have 3 subscribers at the same location, but you can always manually uncheck that and go back and pick the correct work order.
Okay, so we do have to think a little bit when it pops up and say, is that the right one?
Yeah.
Before I just go ahead.
So if you're right, so if you're installing in an apartment building where there's several different apartments all located generally in the same area, you would need to I presume you would see the various different QRs that have popped up for that particular area, and you would have to do a little thought process to make sure you selected the right one for the apartment that you're installing at that time.
Great, thank you. On a different angle, Sergio asked, when is it going to be available for the ePMP units?
So we are actively working on ePMP support. It's expected by end of Q2.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all the questions I have at this time. Go ahead, guys.
All right, well then if that's it, I don't have anything more. Rajesh, if you have anything more you want to throw out before we wrap up the call, feel free. Otherwise, we'll be done.
Yeah, one more request. As you start using it, if you see something missing or some parameter that you set that requires to be added to the app, please let us know on the forum. As more people use it, we are getting more and more feedback on things like, this is not the way we are used to doing things, so it'll be convenient if it worked this way or you added this parameter. So do let us know on the forum.
Right, and I put up the link here. Definitely leverage our cnArcher community forum. I'll do my little plug for Ray Savage. Make sure you get there and provide feedback. If it's useful, great. If it's got problems, as Rajesh just asked or just mentioned, post that too. We want to make this tool as usable for everybody as possible. Thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully this was informative, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye now.